In this video, we'll talk about setup timing and how to set up the default timing for the console. So to do that, we're going to need to get into our setup menu, and I'll do that by opening my browser, and I see setup here, and then I'll double click on system settings, and there are several different places where we can affect timing. So I'm in the system tab, right? And if I go down to queue settings, right, I have here default queue times, and everything that you may have recorded so far is a default time of 5, right? And that's a fade up time, a down fade time, and then there is also focus, color, and beam time. If you want a different default fade, in other words, every cue that you record to have a different cue time. For example, if I'm doing maybe a musical, musicals tend to have quicker cues, right? So I may set my default fade times to time 2. Now, if I just click on this, it says cue uptime, and then I could just type 2, enter, and I go to the next, and I click on the next option, and I say 2, enter. I go to my focus, 2, enter. Go to color, 2, enter. Each one is an individual parameter that needs adjusting, right? So now when I record cues, I'm just going to go back into live. I'll minimize that. I'll click my live tab, and now I'll say 1 full, and I record cue, let's say 7, enter. You'll see that my default time is now a time 2, right? So that is queue timing. Now I'm going to go back into my system settings. This is queue time. There is another place where we can affect time and global time, and that is in our user tab, which is this soft key 2, and you can get to it just by clicking on it with your mouse. And you'll probably open in default record, but if you go to the manual control mode, don't worry about manual timing, that's just fine. I think button value is just fine, but this is where you would assign value for the level key and plus and minus percentage keys. And there's a few other things over here too, but the ones that we want to talk about are right over here. Sneak time by default is set to a time 5. I've always found that to be annoying. If I want something to go away and I want to sneak it out, I dislike waiting 5 seconds for it to sneak out. I will often set my sneak time, and I just clicked on it with my mouse, and you can see it appear in the command line down here. I set my sneak time to 1 just so things go away. The same thing applies to my go to queue time. Why it takes 5 seconds to fade between the queue that I was in that I want to go to, I understand that so that if you miss a queue or need to skip a queue, it's less abrupt. But for programming purposes, I tend to want it to be a little quicker. Now when I click on this one, it gives me this little number pad. And you can use your numeric keypad on your laptop, or you can use this little number keypad that appears here, and I'm just going to set my go to queue time at a time 1 and then press enter. So that's the primary places where you can affect global time. Here, and let's go out of this and let's go back to live, right? And now let's say 2 full, enter. I'm not sure why my visualizer is not performing. 3 full, enter. There's channel 3. Channel 3 is at full. And now if I want to sneak that, I say sneak, enter, and you can see that it goes away relatively quickly. The same thing is true now with go to queue. If I go to queue 2, enter, it gets me into that queue more quickly than a 5 count. So that's time within the setup menus.